Good evening and welcome to tonight's Facebook Live about Let's Take Action. This seems to have struck a chord with quite a few people, and I've had quite a few questions sent in to help me to address the issues that people have around the question of action. Hi Sonia, Sarupa, Orla, nice of you to join. Some people, as I say, have already sent in questions about this topic, and so it could actually become quite lengthy if we don't organise ourselves effectively, or if I don't organise myself effectively. We've now got Angela, Cynthia, Clara, Glynis, Anita. So there's quite a few people already showing an interest. And that's good, because there seems to be this whole confusion around action. When to take it, if to take it, why to take it, how to take it. The questions have been quite phenomenal. Hi Karen, hi Marianne, Tracy, Jackie. Good to have you here. So let's talk about action. It's not just about let's get on with things and let's take action. It's let's talk about action as an answer to a step on a spiritual path. We've now got Elaine and Angela. One of the questions that I was asked was, does it have to be practical? Well, yeah, it does. And why does it? Because the dictionary definition of action is an act. It's about doing something to activate. So it's a practical step. Having a realization may be wonderful. Having a recognition of something may be wonderful and in itself will change your energy, but it's not necessarily going to change anything else. And that's because it's the definition, the difference between intention and intent. We've now got Julie and Nadia joining us. Good to have you here. Intention is where we feel something would be a good thing to do. And often that comes from our enthusiasm. We get enthusiastic about something. For example, New Year's resolutions used to be a big thing. Everybody would get excited, enthusiastic about setting some new thoughts and ideas for the coming year, their intentions. And then when the new year came and the steps required involved perhaps being uncomfortable, perhaps letting go of something that the person really wanted, the intention remained an intention, the enthusiasm drained away, and no action occurred. When we set an intention, we're enthusiastic, we want to move forward, it's really good, and then we make the intent to take the step, then we've transferred from enthusiasm into action. Because then we devise practical steps that we can take that can make a difference. So if it's a physical thing, which it is, does it have to be complicated? No, it doesn't. I might set an intent based on enthusiasm to meditate every day. And that's great. That's an intention that's become a form of action that I want to take. Now I have a choice. I can meditate on the chakras. I can meditate on colour. I can follow a guided meditation. I can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. It doesn't matter which one I choose. What matters is that I choose one and follow through, because that's the action. So if I do a 5-minute meditation every day, which doesn't seem very much but can be very powerful, my intent is an action that I take, and that action day by day builds upon itself so that the energy shifts and changes. Hi Fanula and hi Anita. Anita says, can a practical action ever be too small or too basic? I'm going to quote a homeopathic principle here. Homeopathy works on the minimum amount of energy to generate the maximum amount of benefit. So it doesn't matter how small the action is. In taking that action, you've changed your energy, and so something's shifted. And that's always powerful. When people say to me that they have set an intent and it's 3 or 4 sentences long and it's got this wonderful outcome, it's not an intent, it's an intention. Their emotional body's talking, their enthusiasm is leading them to set something really grand that they can hope to attain. And of course what happens is that they don't. Sonia actually asked, how is it that sometimes the fire in her can be so enthusiastic to do something and yet it fizzles out? And that's exactly why. Because we start with the fire of enthusiasm, we don't follow it with the earth, which grounds that enthusiasm into something practical that we can work with and live with. Why does action on any level even matter? That was another question I was asked, and it's a good one. They're all good ones. It anchors. If you do something and you take an action, you anchor something that you've thought about, that you've meditated upon, that you've been uncertain about. Taking a step anchors it. It's no coincidence that in the Bible, every time Jesus performed a miracle, he followed it by saying to the person for whom he performed the miracle, go and do something. So, for example, the man that was lame, he said to him, take up your bed and walk. Because by that person taking the action, they're taking responsibility for what is occurring to them. And that's always powerful. Julie says it feels like we're wired to make things harder than they need to be. Well, I guess we are, because most of us have a very busy emotional body that likes to control things, or a mental body that likes to criticize until it whips us into shape and we do what it wants us to do. However, if we're walking a spiritual path and we're meditating or contemplating that path daily, our soul is guiding the journey, not the emotional body, not the mental body. And the soul doesn't make things complicated. So if you have an intent to take an action that's complicated, you know it's coming from your personality. It's not coming from your soul. It's certainly not coming from guidance from spirit, because spirit makes things simple. It talks to us in simple terms. It provides us with simple choices and opportunities. So I hope that clarifies. If anybody's not certain about what I'm saying here, please let me know, because otherwise I'll just chatter on and I might not be interesting for the people that are listening. My action tonight comes as a consequence of an intent that I set to do a Facebook Live every month to talk to people about spirituality and to allow them to ask questions. And so every month we do a Facebook Live. That's an action as a result of the intent, which came from an enthusiastic intention to be of service and help people. So it just shows you how it can work out. It can be anything. So, is a realization or a decision to change enough? And a couple of people have asked this. A realization and a decision to change is important because it's the first step. If we don't follow it with an action, it's an intention. We're going to do it one day. So we become what I call a gunner. I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. Angela says, is the emotional body and mental body acting out so our soul can get on with it and take actions to implement soul's plan? No, in actual fact, the emotional body and the mental body don't want us to live the soul's plan, because if we do, they're not in charge of the situation. So they'll try to throw a spanner in the works. They'll try to trip us up so that we lose our enthusiasm, we start to feel stupid or silly, we criticize ourselves. They'll throw things into the mix to put us off. Nadia says, yes, she likes the simplicity. It becomes doable from the soul. It makes sense. Thank you, Nadia. And that, says Julie, is when the emotional and mental body hijack us. Absolutely. Always. Jacqueline says, sometimes we take action for a while and then do something else. Why? Because the enthusiasm's run out. The action has come, and here's the trick. The actions come from the emotional body. The emotional body gets so excited and it wants to do something, and we do it. However, the emotional body doesn't talk to the soul. So there's not a continuation. Whereas if we are meditating and the idea or the intention starts at a soul level and we say we want to follow through with this, then as we start to take action, the soul continues to feed us energy to fulfill that action. When we stop and start to do something else, the emotional body's become distracted and it's found another bright new shiny toy that it wants to play with. So we'll forget that one, that's old hat, let's do the new one. So Clara says, a plan for action is different from the action you are talking about. A plan for action is very much different because a plan for action comes from your mind. Your soul will say to you to take an action. It'll give you an idea. And I'll give you an example. The beginning of this year, Tony and I were told that it was time to go back to live in New Zealand. We didn't set a plan. What we said was, very well, we'll go sometime in 2018. And in February, we went to New Zealand to have a look at what was what. And we bought a house and we said, very well, as things unfold, that's where we'll go. We didn't create a plan. We didn't fall into the emotional body, but what if you don't like it? What if you wish you'd never left Australia? We didn't do any of that. It felt right. It was important to us. It was important to our journey. So we took the steps. So Julie says, meditation once again is the glue that brings all of us together. It does. Because in meditation, we step out of our head, we step out of our emotional body, and we step into our heart. And our heart knows the bigger picture of who we are and what it is we're able to accomplish. Haresh says, can the emotional body talk with the soul directly, or can it only do it through the mind? No. It doesn't only do it through the mind, and some people may not be aware of this. The emotional body is the lowest point of energy for the soul. So the emotional body operates at a physical level, the soul operates at a spiritual level. The mind at any point can come in either to enhance or to break the connection. Where we struggle is because we think our emotional body is our soul. So if we go to the heart instead of the emotional body or the mental body and sit there and contemplate, if we don't want to meditate, we can sit and contemplate, kind of like an open-eyed daydream. Things will settle, the mind will stop chattering, the emotional body will settle down, and we will start to hear through that settling of energy, or to see, or to feel, or to know something that's so clear and so obvious. It's kind of like, well, of course. There are no fanfares, there are no drums, it's just there. At that point, we have a choice. We can build it into something fantastic, and that's our emotional body stepping in and trying to hijack. Or we can tell ourselves how complicated it is and we need to have a plan, and that's the mental body. Or we can simply keep our focus on the vision that we've been shown or the idea that's come to us and say, okay, this is what I'm working towards, show me how to make it happen. And then we take the physical steps. Bronwyn says, sit in the heart and contemplate. I love that, absolutely. It's not difficult. The mind and the emotional body make it difficult. And Elaine asked, what happens if we are given something like this and we don't take action? Well, we don't get struck by lightning. That's the first thing. But what happens is that everything we're trying to bring together becomes a struggle. We have to push because we're pushing against the idea that if we'd followed it, would have made everything simple and flow. When we don't take action as a result of guidance that we're given, we kind of pull the carpet out from under our feet. And so as a result, we make life challenging. Consequences can be that because of that, we're not at a certain place at a certain time to be of importance to somebody else's journey. It can be that a step that we needed to take that would have taken us to the next level of our journey is missed. We don't have to do what we do. Let me make that clear. We don't have to take action. If you choose not to, that's your choice. But the more that you act on what your soul is guiding you to do, the easier your life becomes. Glynis says, and I'm trying to see it, can you explain what you mean by contemplate? How is it different from thinking or wondering? There's a world of difference, Glynis. Thinking is you coming up with ideas. It's you with a thought in your head. For example, we'll use our example. We're going to New Zealand. So I think very well. What's the date? Are we going to pack everything? Will we close the business? Will we live there permanently? Will we go back? It's all thinking. Contemplation says we've been guided to go to New Zealand. We've been guided to go to New Zealand. You don't think anything. You allow the energy to think through you. Because then that's your soul working through you. If you allow the space from the intent to the action, and that space may be 5 seconds, but from a spiritual perspective, it can be 5,000 years. In that space of non-action, you hear your soul speak. If you have an idea to take an action based on something you've got in meditation, and you have to do it, you have to make it work, and it has to be now and it can't be tomorrow, you're not taking an action based on your soul. You've dropped into your emotional or mental body, and you're being impelled by your personality. Jen asked, is there a time where non-action is important? Yes, there is. And it's probably the only thing that I would say is an action that's not a physical step. And yet it is a physical step. If you know that there is an action to take and you feel that you need to allow things to unfold a little bit more, the choice not to take an action is in itself an action. Because you're standing still, you're choosing the action of standing still. And that can be very, very powerful. Julie says, so how does divine timing play into it? That's exactly how it plays into it. You allow spirit to guide you, and the moment you allow spirit to guide you, you're in divine time, not your time. Whereas if you step into it has to be done by this date at this time on this hour, it's your time, it's not spirit. Mary Ann says, if we meditate, it stops the emotions and mind taking over during challenging planetary systems. It stops the mind and the emotions taking over at any time, not just during challenging planetary systems, as important as they are. So Elaine says, so therefore taking action that follows an intent that is communicated through the meditation from soul is living your soul journey. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sonia says, to follow up on not taking an action, would that person create a karma? It's possible, yes. If at a soul level, you've agreed to meet somebody at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon at a coffee shop, accidentally, of course, because you don't know each other at a personality level, and you don't turn up, that person's journey is delayed because you haven't turned up. Depending on the circumstances will determine whether that's a karmic situation or not. So I hope this has helped you to understand the energy of action and how important action is if we want to move forward. Julie says, does it get that specific with timing? Absolutely it does. Absolutely. So if we don't follow through, if we understand something to be a step for us to take, and we don't take it, we postpone everything that comes from that. We live in a world that now accepts that the degree of difference between people is 6 degrees of separation. If you miss a window of opportunity, contemplate how long that might be before you get another one. It could be a long time. Haresh says, I find it difficult to discern between allowing and procrastination. You know the difference. The difference is really simple. Procrastination says, I'm not making a choice. I'm not taking a step. Allowing says, this step needs to be taken. I've sat in meditation and asked, is this step to be taken now? And if the answer's no, you're allowing. Procrastination comes from the mind, it doesn't come from the soul. The soul will never procrastinate. It will say yes or it will say no. And Swarupa says, when you take action and flow stops, or it feels like things are unraveling backwards, or is that a judgment? No, it's not. Would that be a sign that you've stopped following your guidance? If you take an action and the flow stops, I'd go back to the action. I'd go back and tune in and ask, was this actually the action for me to take at this point? Or did I somehow mishear it, misconstrue it? Because if you take an action and the flow stops, it's not the next best action for you to take. It may be an action, but there may be something else that you need to do first. So Julie says, is it different for people who are not on a conscious path to those that are not? Is it different for people who are not on a conscious path to those that are not, because you know what to do? I think what you're saying, Julie, is it different for people who are consciously on their spiritual path than people who are not? Yes, it is. You're not going to like the answer, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The people that are on their conscious path who don't take action don't have an excuse. They know, they've been told what to do, they're not doing it, so they've consciously chosen not to step forward. Someone who isn't consciously on their path quite often listens to their intuition without realizing it and just does it anyway and calls it their gut or a hunch or something of that nature. And for them, because they're not consciously on their path, there isn't the same degree of responsibility expected of them. This, yes, Nadia, this does help you no matter whether you're consciously on your path or not. If you feel to do something and you contemplate or you meditate and you take an action that comes from that, it's going to benefit your life no matter what, because you're shifting, you're changing, you're moving and you're growing. And ultimately, that's the purpose of taking action. So, thank you all very much. I think I got to everybody's questions, but if I didn't, I'm sure you could put a comment in the Facebook Live below. And perhaps if you want to talk about this a little bit more, you can let me know between now and the next conversation. Hope you enjoy your intent and your action and that you have fun exploring it. Talk to you next time.